The annual Anderson Technology Gala was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a soft glow over Silicon Valley's elite as they mingled in their designer evening wear. I stood near one of the ornate pillars, watching my sister Sophia hold court among a group of admiring executives. "The merger will transform the entire industry," she announced, gesturing with her champagne flute. "Once Anderson Tech acquires Sterling Industries, we'll dominate the market. My team has been working on this deal for months." I took a sip of my sparkling water, knowing exactly how long her team had actually been working on the merger, and exactly why it was doomed to fail tomorrow morning. "Emma," my mother's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Stop lurking in the corners. It's embarrassing." I stepped forward, though I knew what was coming. These technology galas always followed the same script. Sophia's achievements would be praised while my career choices would be subtly, or not so subtly, criticized. "Sophia was just telling us about the Sterling merger," my mother said, beaming with pride. 32 years old and already vice president of acquisitions. "We always knew she would do great things." "Unlike some people," my father added, giving me a pointed look. At 58, Richard Anderson still commanded attention in any room, though his perfectly tailored tuxedo couldn't quite hide the strain of recent months. Not that he'd ever admit Anderson Tech was struggling. "Emma's still doing that startup thing," Sophia said with a dismissive wave. "What is it again?" "Some kind of software company." "Nexus Technologies," I supplied quietly. "We develop advanced cybersecurity solutions." "Right," Sophia smirked. "Playing with computers in a garage somewhere." If she only knew that somewhere was actually the top 5 floors of the city's most prestigious office building. But I kept that to myself, just as I kept quiet about a lot of things over the past 3 years. "I don't understand why you waste your time with that small business nonsense," my mother sighed, adjusting her diamond necklace. "You had such a promising future at Anderson Tech. You could have been in management by now." I suppressed a smile, thinking of the documents waiting in my office. Documents that would reveal exactly who was really in management now. "Speaking of management," my father interjected, "Sophia's merger deal is going to make history. The largest acquisition in Anderson Tech's history, nearly $4 billion. And the contracts are being signed tomorrow morning," Sophia added triumphantly. 10 a.m. sharp. Every major news outlet will be there." I checked my watch, an intentionally modest timepiece that masked the fact that I could buy every piece of jewelry in this room without blinking. "I should actually head out. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Oh," Sophia's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Finally landed a real client." "Something like that." "Well, don't let us keep you from your little startup," she laughed. "Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close tomorrow." As I turned to leave, I heard my mother's stage whisper, "She just works at some startup." It's rather embarrassing, really. I made my way to the exit, nodding politely to various tech executives who had no idea that the woman they were dismissing as Richard's other daughter was actually the anonymous CEO they'd been desperately trying to meet for months. Outside, my driver held the door of a modest sedan, not the Bentley I usually use, but part of the careful image I maintained around my family. As we pulled away from the gala, I finally allowed myself to relax. "Home, Miss Collins?" Thomas asked, using the name I was known by in the business world. "The office first," I replied, pulling out my phone. "I need to review everything for tomorrow's meeting." A message from Marcus, my chief operating officer, was waiting. "All set for tomorrow. Anderson Tech's board has no idea what's coming." I smiled, thinking about the carefully orchestrated plan that would unfold in less than 12 hours. For 3 years, I'd been building Nexus Technologies in secret, using a series of shell companies to hide my identity as founder and CEO. While my family dismissed me as a small-time entrepreneur, I created one of the most powerful cybersecurity firms in the world. My phone buzzed again, this time with a family group text from my mother. "Sophia's big day tomorrow. Everyone be sure to watch the morning news coverage of the Sterling merger signing." The Sterling merger. I closed my eyes, remembering the day 3 years ago when I'd walked away from Anderson Tech. I'd seen the warning signs even then, the outdated systems, the vulnerable infrastructure, the over-reliance on old technology. I tried to tell them, to convince them we needed to modernize. "You're just jealous of your sister's success," my father had said dismissively. "Leave the real business decisions to those who understand them." So I did. I left Anderson Tech and started my own company, determined to build something better, something that would revolutionize cybersecurity while my family clung to their outdated methods. What they didn't know was that Sterling Industries wasn't signing a merger agreement tomorrow. They were signing a takeover by Nexus Technologies. The struggling company they thought was worth $4 billion was actually worth less than half that, thanks to devastating security vulnerabilities that my team had discovered months ago. Vulnerabilities that Anderson Tech's due diligence had completely missed. At my office, the real one, not the small space I maintained for family visits, I reviewed the final details. The corner office occupied the entire top floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, a far cry from the garage startup my sister imagined. Miss Collins, my assistant Sarah, appeared at the door. The final reports are ready for tomorrow's meeting. I took the folder, scanning the contents one last time. Everything was there. The security audit revealing Sterling's weaknesses, the true valuation showing Anderson Tech was drastically overpaying, and most importantly, the proof that my sister's brilliant merger strategy was built on fundamentally flawed assumptions. Has the press release been prepared? I asked. Ready to go out the moment you give the word, Sarah confirmed. Though, are you sure you want to do this? They're still your family. I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd built my empire while my family continued to underestimate me. They stopped treating me like family the moment I chose my own path. Tomorrow they'll learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. Your sister's going to be humiliated, Sarah said softly. Yes, I agreed, thinking of years of condescension and mockery. But maybe that's what it takes to learn that success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. My phone buzzed one final time. Another message from Marcus. Board members are confirmed for 9 a.m. Your family won't know what hit them. I sat down at my desk, opening my laptop to review the statement I would make tomorrow. The words that would reveal that the daughter they dismissed as an embarrassment had built something far more valuable than they could imagine. On my screen, the latest stock analysis showed Anderson Tech's vulnerability. They were betting everything on this merger, stretching their resources to the breaking point. They needed Sterling Industries to save them from years of technological stagnation. Instead, they were about to discover that their salvation, or their downfall, rested in the hands of the daughter they'd never taken seriously. The next morning, Anderson Tech's main conference room buzzed with anticipation. Camera crews from major networks had set up their equipment, ready to broadcast what everyone thought would be a straightforward merger signing. I stood in my private office across the street, watching the scene unfold through floor-to-ceiling windows. My Armani suit, a far cry from the intentionally modest clothes I wore to family functions, felt like armor. They're all there, Marcus reported, appearing at my door. Your sister's giving pre-signing interviews about her brilliant strategy. Your father's already made 3 speeches about the Anderson legacy. I smiled, adjusting my cuffs, and Sterling Industries CEO. Looking nervous. He knows what's coming. Of course he did. We'd informed Sterling's board about their security vulnerabilities weeks ago, offering them a choice. Face public exposure of their weaknesses or agree to a takeover by Nexus Technologies. They'd chosen survival. Miss Collins, Sarah appeared with a tablet. The press release is ready, and your mother just arrived at Anderson Tech. She's wearing celebration pearls. I checked my watch. 9:45 a.m. time to go. Let's show my family what a little startup can do. The walk across the street felt like crossing a threshold between 2 worlds. In one, I was Emma Anderson, the disappointing daughter who just works at some startup. In the other, I was Catherine Collins, the enigmatic CEO of Nexus Technologies, one of the most powerful women in Silicon Valley. Through the glass walls of Anderson Tech's lobby, I could see reporters clustered around Sophia as she detailed her vision for the merged companies. My father stood nearby, basking in reflected glory, while my mother watched adoringly. I stepped into the elevator, Marcus and Sarah flanking me with briefcases containing the real merger documents, the ones that would shatter my family's carefully constructed reality. The conference room doors opened at exactly 9:55 a.m. The buzz of conversation died instantly as I walked in, followed by my executive team. Sophia's interview cut off mid-sentence. Emma, what are you doing here? This is a private signing. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting down my briefcase. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin? Begin. My father stood up, his face reddening. Emma, this is ridiculous. We're here for the Sterling merger signing. Where is Sterling's CEO? Mr. Chen won't be joining us, I replied, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing folders to the stunned board members. He signed the final paperwork last night. Last night? Sophia's voice rose an octave. That's impossible. I have the merger agreement right here. That agreement is void, I said, watching color drain from my sister's face as she opened the folder in front of her. Sterling Industries has accepted a different offer. My father's hands clenched into fists. What are you talking about? Who could possibly? Nexus Technologies, I cut in smoothly. Or more specifically, me? The silence that followed was absolute. Cameras swung in my direction as reporters suddenly realized they were covering a very different story than expected. This is absurd, Sophia finally sputtered. You run a small cybersecurity startup. You couldn't possibly afford. That small startup is worth $12 billion, Sophia. We're the largest cybersecurity firm in the country. I turned to the room's main screen, bringing up Nexus's true financial data. While you were all mocking my career choices, I built something you never saw coming. My mother's celebration pearls clinked against the table as she sank into her chair. But you work from a tiny office downtown. A front, I explained. Nexus Technologies operates in 20 countries. We own this building, actually. And as of last night, we own Sterling Industries. Why? My father's voice cracked. Why go to all this trouble? I met his eyes across the table. 3 years ago, I tried to tell you about Anderson Tech's security vulnerabilities. About how far behind the company was falling. You told me to leave the real business decisions to those who understand them. Well, I did. I gestured to Sarah, who began passing out more documents. These papers detail exactly why Sterling Industries agreed to our takeover. Massive security breaches, outdated infrastructure, millions in hidden losses, all things your due diligence missed, Sophia. My sister's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. This will destroy us, she whispered. No, I corrected. This will save you. Nexus isn't just taking over Sterling, we're offering to acquire Anderson Tech as well. At a fair price, before the market realizes how vulnerable you really are. The board members leaned forward, suddenly very interested. They'd seen the company's declining numbers, even if they'd been afraid to challenge the Anderson family about it. You can't do this, my father breathed. We're family. Family? I laughed softly. Was it family when you dismissed every idea I brought to the table? When you mocked my career choices? When you called my work embarrassing at every opportunity? I stood up, surveying the room. Anderson Tech has 12 hours to accept our offer. After that, we go public with everything we found. Your choice. Mom, Sophia pleaded, turning to our mother who sat frozen in shock. Do something. But there was nothing she could do, nothing any of them could do. Last night at the gala, I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent room, you called my job embarrassing. You spent years undermining me, belittling my achievements, assuming my silence meant weakness. I walked to the door, then turned back one final time. I want you to remember this moment. Remember that the daughter you dismissed as a failure now holds your company's fate in her hands. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal requirements. Sophia was escorted to her office to collect her things, her perfect composure finally cracking as reality set in. My father avoided my eyes as he surrendered his company keycard. My mother's celebration pearls lay forgotten on the conference table. Later that evening, I stood in my office at Nexus, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. Marcus appeared with a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand my family had been drinking last night while mocking my career. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. All these years of hiding your success. I thought about the decades of condescension, the dismissive comments, the patronizing offers of entry-level positions. Then I thought about the empire I built, the thousands of employees who relied on me, the innovations we created. It wasn't about revenge, I said finally. It was about proving that success doesn't always look the way they think it should. That you don't have to follow their path to build something meaningful. The following year brought changes no one in my family could have predicted. Anderson Tech, under Nexus's leadership, transformed into a cutting-edge technology company. Sophia eventually found a mid-level position at another firm, hopefully having learned the value of humility. My parents, their tech dynasty shattered, stopped hosting their achievement-focused galas. And me? I kept building, growing, expanding, not to prove anything to them anymore, but because I discovered something they never understood. True success isn't about titles or family names or merger announcements. It's about creating something meaningful, something that lasts. These days, when people ask about my path to success, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the best response to those who underestimate you isn't to prove them wrong immediately. It's to build something so magnificent that when they finally realize their mistake, it's already too late to matter.
The rain was pouring as I watched Dad throw my last bag onto the driveway of our family home. Well, their family home now. The same house I'd grown up in for 28 years, now becoming just another memory. No job, no home. Dad's voice boomed across the manicured lawn. I'm done supporting a lazy dreamer. Mom stood in the doorway, her silk robe pulled tight against the evening chill. Diana, please, if you'd just take the position at your father's firm. I don't want to be another corporate drone, Mom, I said, rain soaking through my clothes. I told you I'm building something. Building what? Dad sneered. A fantasy? It's been 2 years since you quit Anderson and Brooks. 2 years of sitting in your room with those computers. If only they knew those computers had just revolutionized artificial intelligence. If only they could see the contracts sitting in my private office, the one they thought was a storage unit across town. James Anderson's son just made junior partner, Mom added, her voice carrying that familiar disappointed tone. He's your age, Diana. Remember when you two used to date? I remembered. James Anderson Jr. had dumped me when I left his father's law firm to start my own company. She's throwing her life away, he told everyone at the country club. Now his father's firm was unknowingly processing patents for my technology through shell companies. This is your last chance, Dad declared, standing in his expensive suit bought with money from the very company that would soon have my name on it. Either take the associate position at Anderson and Brooks or get out. I looked at my bag's designer luggage they'd given me last Christmas, now scattered in puddles. Inside one was my laptop containing codes worth billions. In another, contracts that would reshape the global technology landscape. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go. Diana. Mom stepped forward, but Dad held up his hand. Let her go, Margaret. She wants to learn the hard way. Let her learn. They didn't know I'd already bought an entire building downtown. They thought I was between apartments, their polite way of saying homeless. If only they'd bothered to check who owned the mysterious Nova Technologies that had been buying up prime real estate across the city. At least take the car, Mom pleaded, pointing to my old Honda Civic in the driveway. Keep it, I replied, pulling out my phone to summon my real car, a custom vehicle that cost more than their house. It was parked around the corner along with my security team. Not that they knew about them either. Dad scoffed. Going to call one of your broke friends? No one's going to take you in, Diana. No one supports this delusion of yours. The sound of a high-end engine purred from around the corner. Mom's eyes widened as a sleek black car pulled up, not the Civic they thought was my only transportation. Miss Stone, my driver called out using my mother's maiden name, my business alias. Your car is ready. Dad's face flickered with confusion. Who? My driver, I said simply, watching their expressions. And this is my car. You can't afford. Dad started, but his voice trailed off as he recognized the vehicle, a limited edition model, only 10 in existence. He tried to buy one last month but was told they were all sold to a private buyer. Actually, Dad, I own the company that makes them. Before they could respond, another car pulled up. My assistant stepped out, holding an umbrella. Miss Stone, the board is waiting. The contracts need your signature before tomorrow's announcement. What announcement? Mom asked, her voice small. I smiled, rain running down my face. You'll see it tomorrow. First thing in the morning, right outside Dad's office. My office? Dad's confidence wavered slightly. What are you talking about? Look up, Dad. Look up at your precious Anderson and Brooks building tomorrow morning. You might find it enlightening. With that, I turned and walked to my car, leaving them standing in the rain. My bags were quickly loaded by my security team, the ones disguised as garden service across the street, watching over me even when my parents threw me out. Diana. Mom called out. Where will you go? I paused at the car door. Home, Mom. To my real home. You know that storage unit you mocked? It's the penthouse of the city's tallest building. The one I own. Their faces were priceless, but this was just the beginning. Tomorrow, when they arrived at Dad's beloved law firm, they'd see what their unemployed daughter had really been building these past 2 years. Because tomorrow Anderson and Brooks would have a new name. My name. In gold letters 60 stories high. And that would just be the start of their education about their lazy daughter's true empire. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for a corporate takeover. I stood in my real office, the entire top floor of what was about to become Stone Technologies Tower, watching the workers prepare to unveil the new sign. Miss Stone, my executive assistant Sarah approached. Your parents just arrived at Anderson and Brooks. Security cameras show them in the lobby. I smiled, turning to the wall of monitors showing various angles of the building across the street. Dad was in his usual parking spot, the one marked Senior Partner, a title that would be obsolete in approximately 3 minutes. Their faces when they see the sign? Sarah asked. Record it, I replied. Every angle. Mom had just stepped out of her Mercedes, carrying her usual morning coffee from the overpriced cafe in the lobby, the cafe I'd bought last month, along with the entire building. Start the announcement, I commanded softly. The building's PA system crackled to life. Attention all Anderson and Brooks employees. Please proceed to the main lobby for an important company announcement. I watched through the security feeds as confusion spread across the lobby. Law firms didn't do surprise announcements. They didn't do anything without multiple meetings and committees. Diana, James Anderson Jr.'s voice carried across the lobby as he approached my parents. What's this about your daughter? Security said. Before he could finish, the building's exterior screens lit up, all 12 of them, each 10 stories tall. My face appeared on every one, along with the Stone Technologies logo. Good morning, Anderson and Brooks, my recorded voice echoed through the lobby. Or should I say, Stone Technologies Legal Division. Mom's coffee cup slipped from her hand, the liquid spreading across the marble floors I'd had installed last week. Over the past 2 years, my image continued. While you thought I was unemployed and wasting my potential, I was building the world's most advanced artificial intelligence company. A company that has been quietly acquiring assets worldwide. Including, as of this morning, Anderson and Brooks law firm. Dad staggered back, grabbing a pillar for support. The same pillar that now bore my company's logo. No, James Sr. burst from the elevator. This is impossible. We would have known. Would you? My live voice cut through the lobby as I walked through the front doors, flanked by my executive team. The same way you knew Nova Holdings was a front for Stone Technologies? The same way you knew who was really behind the AI patents you've been processing. The massive screens outside began displaying numbers, stock prices, acquisition details, global holdings. Anderson and Brooks was just the latest in a long string of acquisitions. Your firm has been processing my patents for 18 months, I continued, walking toward my stunned parents. Did you ever actually read them? Or were you too busy mocking the unemployed daughter of William Stone to notice you were helping build her empire? Empire. James Jr. scoffed, but his voice shook. What empire? Sarah stepped forward with a tablet, projecting current valuations onto every screen in the lobby. Stone Technologies, current market value, $157 billion. Subsidiary holdings including real estate, technology and now legal divisions, $243 billion combined. Mom had to sit down on one of the lobby's leather couches I'd selected myself during last month's renovation. That's more than. Dad couldn't even finish the sentence. More than Anderson and Brooks is worth? I finished for him. Yes, about 1,000 times more. Speaking of worth. I turned to James Jr. Remember when you said I was throwing my life away? That I'd never succeed without your family's connections. The exterior screens switched to a new display. My personal net worth versus the Anderson family's. The difference was staggering. Miss Stone, Sarah interrupted, the NASA director is on the line about the AI integration. NASA. Mom whispered. His mom. Those computers in my room? They're controlling spacecraft now. In fact. I gestured to the screens which showed live feeds from various Stone Technologies facilities worldwide. Everything from military defense systems to global communications runs on my AI. Dad's legs finally gave out and he sank onto another couch. My daughter owns everything you see, I confirmed. This building, your firm, even that coffee Mom just dropped. The cafe? I own the entire chain. The lobby had filled with employees now, all watching their world transform. The prestigious Anderson and Brooks logo was being replaced everywhere with Stone Technologies' emblem. Your offices are being relocated, I announced to the crowd. The upper floors are becoming our AI research division. Dad, your corner office? It's now the quantum computing lab. But that's my office, he stammered. I've had it for 20 years. Had it, I corrected. Past tense. Don't worry though, I'm not firing you. Consider your new position a chance to learn what your lazy daughter has been building. The screens outside began showing global news coverage of the acquisition. My face was everywhere, along with headlines like, Tech's New Queen, and Stone Technologies. The silent giant emerges. But the real shock was still to come. The morning's revelations were far from over. As my family stood shell-shocked in what was now my lobby, the next phase began. Sarah approached with another tablet, her timing perfect as always. Miss Stone, shall we show them the global acquisitions? Global. James Sr. stepped forward, his face ashen. What global acquisitions? The screens shifted again, displaying a world map dotted with Stone Technologies holdings. Red dots appeared everywhere, each representing a company, building, or facility I owned. While you were all laughing at my unemployment, I explained, walking to the center of the lobby, I was building something unprecedented. Anderson and Brooks isn't just becoming part of Stone Technologies. It's becoming part of the world's largest private technology consortium. The president's calling, Sarah announced. About the defense contract. I took the call on speaker, letting everyone hear. Yes, Madam President. The AI integration is complete. Yes, the Pentagon will have full access by noon. No, the Chinese haven't cracked our encryption yet. Mom's knees buckled. 2 years of telling her society friends I was finding myself. And here I was casually discussing national security with the president. That's impossible, James Jr. muttered. You couldn't have built all this in 2 years. Actually, I smiled. I built it in 18 months. The other 6 were spent buying up real estate, including your family's vacation homes. All of them. The Andersons' faces went pale as the screens showed their beloved properties. The Hamptons mansion, the Aspen ski lodge, the Mediterranean villa, all now bearing the Stone Technologies logo. Your father kicked me out last night, I addressed the stunned lobby crowd. Threw my bags in the rain because I was unemployed. Would anyone like to guess my current net worth? Sarah projected the number. Several people gasped. James Sr. had to grab his son for support. That's more than the GDP of most countries, someone whispered. Most countries combined, I corrected. And speaking of countries, I nodded to Sarah, who changed the displays again. Stone Technologies just acquired controlling interest in 17 major global banking institutions. We now process 60% of the world's electronic transactions. Dad found his voice. But your room, those computers, were quantum processors, Dad. Each one worth more than this building. That mess of wires you complained about? It's now the backbone of global cybersecurity. The screens showed live feeds from Stone Technologies facilities worldwide, AI research centers, quantum computing labs, aerospace facilities. In each one, thousands of employees worked on technology that was revolutionizing every industry. Ms. Stone, another executive approached. The Space Force General needs approval for the Mars Colony AI systems. Mars Colony? Mom squeaked. Oh yes, I turned to her. Remember when you said I was wasting time with science fiction? We're launching next month. Would you like to see the colony designs? The lobby's holographic system activated. Another recent installation, displaying a 3-dimensional model of the Mars settlement. My parents watched their unemployed daughter's vision float before them, representing trillions in investment and humanity's future. By the way, Dad, I added casually, that retirement fund you're so proud of? Check who manages it now. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands, accessing his account. His face went white as the Stone Technologies logo appeared. You control my retirement? I control everyone's retirement, I corrected. Stone Technologies now manages 70% of global pension funds, including Anderson and Brooks' employee accounts. James Jr., trying to salvage something, spoke up, but surely the Bar Association is now subsidiarity of Stone Legal Division. I cut him off. Along with every major law firm in the country. Remember when you said I'd never make it in legal technology? The AI system you mocked just replaced 90% of document review worldwide. The screens showed another set of numbers, the value of traditional legal services versus Stone Technologies' automated systems. The difference was astronomical. And Mom. I turned to her. Those society friends you were so worried about me embarrassing you in front of? Check their phones. Every device in the lobby lit up simultaneously, displaying breaking news. Stone Technologies CEO named world's youngest trillionaire, Diana Stone revolutionizes global industry. I own their companies now, I continued. Their buildings, their banks, their technology. That country club membership you were so proud of? I bought the club last week, along with every luxury resort chain in the portfolio. Dad had to sit down again. Diana. We never knew. No, you didn't. Because you never asked. You were too busy throwing my bags in the rain to notice I was building an empire. The final blow came as the exterior screens showed one last revelation, Stone Technologies' newest acquisition. The entire Anderson family business empire, including their overseas holdings. James, I addressed my ex. About that junior partner position you were so proud of? The position you said I'd never achieve without you? I own your title now. In fact, I smiled, I own every title in this building. The morning sun hit the new sign perfectly, Stone Technologies Tower, my name in gold letters visible across the city. Below it, the words that would reshape their understanding forever. Global Headquarters AI Division. Now, I addressed the lobby. Shall we discuss the new organizational structure? Dad, you might want to take notes. Your performance review is next week. As my executive team began the transition briefing, I watched my parents' world crumble and rebuild itself around the reality of who their unemployed daughter had become. The lazy dreamer they'd thrown out in the rain now owned not just their building but their entire reality. And this was just the beginning. The pristine walls of my childhood bedroom still bore the marks of countless taped-up sketches, faint rectangles where my childish doodles had once hung before Dad insisted I take them down. Now, sitting on my old bed with my tablet in hand, I watched those same doodles shake the art world. Lot 47, the Christie's auctioneer's voice came through my live stream. Early work from the Neon Dreams collection. Opening bid at $20 million. My phone buzzed, probably another text from Mom asking why I wasn't at Sunday dinner. They still thought I was wasting time with those cartoons in my tiny studio apartment. 30 million. 45 million. 60 million. The bids flew higher as my animated art pieces, digitally enhanced versions of those bedroom sketches, glowed on the auction house's screens. Each piece told a story, the ones my family had dismissed as juvenile fantasies. Dad, I texted back, turn on channel 8. There's something you need to see. The auctioneer's voice rose with excitement. 80 million from the bidder in Shanghai. I could picture the scene downstairs. Mom setting out the roast she'd made to guilt me into coming home, Dad probably rehearsing another lecture about real careers and growing up. 85 million from the Metropolitan. My latest piece floated on the auction screen, a swirling constellation of animated characters and landscapes, each element hiding complex social commentary beneath its cartoon surface. The same style Dad had ordered me to grow out of when I was 16. 90 million. 95 million. The gavel fell. Sold. The complete Neon Dreams collection to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for $95 million. My phone exploded with notifications as the art world reacted. But I was only waiting for one call, the one from downstairs, where I knew Mom and Dad were watching their failed artist-daughter rewrite modern art history. The thundering of footsteps up the stairs told me they'd seen the broadcast. My bedroom door flew open, revealing Dad's flushed face and Mom's trembling hands still holding her wine glass. That was your art? Dad's voice cracked. Those glowing cartoon things. Animated neo-expressionist pieces. I corrected gently, watching another notification pop up on my tablet. The Louvre requesting a private showing. The same style you told me would never pay the bills. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor she'd always kept immaculate, afraid my art supplies might stain it. But you work in that little studio apartment, she stammered. You said you were doing illustrations for children's books. That's my day job, I smiled, pulling up more screens on my tablet. These are my real projects. Digital galleries materialized in the air, holograms of my worldwide exhibitions, each piece selling for millions. The childish cartoons had evolved into a revolutionary art form, blending traditional animation with cutting-edge technology and social commentary. The Tokyo show last month, I continued, showing them footage of lines wrapping around the Mori Art Museum. The Paris retrospective coming up in spring. The permanent collection being installed at MoMA. Dad sank onto my bed, his eyes fixed on the streaming numbers from the auction. 95 million. For cartoons? For art that speaks to a generation raised on animation, I corrected. Art that hides complexity behind seeming simplicity. Like those sketches you made me take down. I gestured to the faint tape marks on the walls, ghosts of the artwork that had just sold for more than our entire neighborhood was worth. The college fund you refused to spend on art school? I pulled up my bank balance. I could buy the university now. The real job you insisted I get? My assistant handles those calls while I'm in my studio. Mom was still staring at the spilled wine, probably seeing the irony in how many times she'd scolded me for making messes with my art supplies. Why didn't you tell us? She whispered. I turned to the wall where my first major piece had once hung, the one Dad had called a waste of paper. Because you needed to see it like this, I said softly. On the world stage, validated by the very institutions you respected. Because if I'd told you 6 months ago that my cartoons were selling for millions, you wouldn't have believed me. My phone buzzed again, the Met's curator wanting to discuss the installation. On my tablet, the auction aftermarket was already pushing the collection's value past $100 million. All those hours you thought I was doodling, I continued, bringing up my design software. I was revolutionizing digital art. While you were worrying about me growing up, galleries were bidding for my work. Dad picked up one of my old sketchbooks, still sitting on the shelf where he'd banished it years ago. These drawings, they're worth millions now? The originals? I nodded. Probably 8 figures each. But I'm not selling them. Why not? I smiled, watching another notification pop up. Another museum, another 8-figure offer. Because some things are worth more than money. Like proving that childish dreams can change the art world. The next hour transformed my childhood bedroom into something between an art gallery and a corporate headquarters. My tablet projected holograms of my work across the walls, each piece now worth more than our house, while notifications from museums and collectors worldwide kept flooding in. This one, I said, enlarging a particularly complex piece, was inspired by the time you grounded me for drawing during math class. The artwork exploded into 3 dimensions, filling the room with swirling animated figures that told stories of restriction, rebellion, and ultimate freedom. Numbers and equations danced through the scene, transformed into characters that played out complex narratives. It sold for $12 million at Sotheby's, I added quietly. The mathematician who bought it said it helped him visualize string theory. Mom sat on my old desk chair, still shaking. But your little studio apartment we visited last month. It was so basic. I pulled up the security feed from my basic studio. The simple room they'd seen was actually an anteroom, hiding a state-of-the-art digital art facility that occupied the entire top floor of the building. That's my actual studio, I explained, showing them the vast space filled with cutting-edge technology and works in progress. The small room is just where I meet people who still think I'm struggling. People like us, Dad said softly, watching as another piece sold in the ongoing auction's secondary market. The apartment you kept trying to help me upgrade from? I continued, pulling up the property deed. I own the building. Along with most of that block now. More notifications chimed, galleries in Dubai, Singapore, and London all requesting immediate meetings. The art world was exploding with news of my collection's record-breaking sale. But why keep it secret? Mom asked, finally finding her voice. Why let us think you were failing? I walked to my old closet, pulling out a worn portfolio. The one Dad had once called a waste of good leather. Because of this, I said, opening it to reveal my earliest sketches. Every time you dismissed these as childish, every lecture about real jobs, every comment about growing up, it all went into the art. The portfolio's contents came alive through my tablet's augmented reality display, each simple sketch transforming into the multi-million-dollar masterpieces they'd become. That cartoon cat you said was a waste of time? The sketch rose from the page, becoming a complex animated commentary on societal expectations that had sold for $20 million. Those silly doodles in my math notebook? Another transformation showing how I'd turned equations into art that now hung in tech billionaires' collections. Dad picked up an old permission slip, one he'd refused to sign for an art summer camp. All this time, while we were pushing you to be practical, I was building something revolutionary, I finished. Something that proved art doesn't have to follow traditional rules to be valuable. My phone buzzed again, this time with an alert that would shatter even the afternoon's previous records. Ms. Chin, my AI assistant's voice came through my tablet. The Vatican Museum's curator is on the line. They're interested in commissioning a permanent installation. Mom's hands flew to her mouth. The Vatican? Along with the Guggenheim, the Tate Modern, and... I checked the growing list. Apparently the Imperial House of Japan. Dad sat heavily on my old beanbag chair, the one he tried to throw out because it wasn't professional enough for a young adult's room. The commission fees, I continued, pulling up the offers, start at $50 million each. Though the Vatican's offering something more interesting than money. What could be more interesting than $50 million? Dad asked weakly. I expanded the Vatican's proposal in holographic form. They want me to reimagine the Sistine Chapel's ceiling for the digital age. A permanent fusion of Michelangelo's work with my childish cartoons. The room filled with my preliminary concepts, animated angels dancing through classical scenes, Renaissance figures transformed into living art that responded to viewers' movements. Those late nights you thought I was wasting time on my computer? I gestured to a particularly complex sequence. I was developing the technology that makes this possible. While you were worrying about my career, I was inventing new forms of artistic expression. Another notification chimed, the Met's installation team requesting technical specifications. On my tablet, I could see them preparing the entire wing that would house my collection. Your cousin Stephen's law firm, Mom said suddenly. The one you refused to interview with. Just bought 3 pieces for their lobby, I nodded. Though they don't know they bought them from the disappointing niece who turned down their junior associate position. I pulled up the sales record. $28 million for pieces they thought came from an anonymous artist. The same art style they'd mocked when it filled my high school notebooks. The gallery opening next month, I continued, watching their expressions. The one you've been avoiding talking about because you thought it was another hobby project? What about it? Dad asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer wouldn't be what he expected. It's not just a gallery. I activated the full architectural plans. I bought the old art school that rejected me, transformed it into a digital art museum and education center. The same school that said my style was too unconventional will now teach courses based on my techniques. The holographic display showed the massive complex 30 stories of cutting-edge art technology and educational spaces, all dedicated to nurturing the kind of creativity my parents had tried to discourage. The opening gala, I added quietly, has a waiting list of collectors and celebrities willing to pay $1 million per ticket. Though I've reserved front row seats for you free of charge. Mom's eyes welled with tears. Oh honey, we were so wrong. You weren't wrong, I said, watching another piece sell for 8 figures. You were just looking at art through an old lens. The same way the traditional galleries did until my cartoons started selling for more than their classical collections. The setting sun cast long shadows through my bedroom window, creating interesting patterns that danced with the holograms of my artwork. The Christie's auction was entering its final phase, with my smaller pieces now selling for prices that made even the earlier millions seem modest. There's something else you should see, I said, activating a hidden feature in my tablet. The entire room transformed, becoming a virtual gallery of my journey. This is what I've been building while you thought I was struggling. Every wall showed a different phase of my career. The early rejections from traditional galleries, the first digital experiments, the moment when the art world finally realized that cartoons could carry deeper meaning than classical paintings. That summer internship I turned down at the bank, I began pulling up a particular piece. I was actually in Tokyo creating this. The artwork materialized in the center of the room, a swirling vortex of animated characters that told the story of financial systems collapsing and rebuilding in new forms. It had sold for $30 million to a banking consortium that now used it to train AI systems. And that Christmas dinner I missed? Another piece appeared. I was installing this at the Louvre. Mom sank deeper into her chair as she watched the progression of my success. Each piece worth more than their entire life savings, each installation more prestigious than the last. But your apartment, Dad started again, still struggling with the disconnect, is actually the top 3 floors of the building. I finished showing them the true floor plans. The small studio you saw is where I meet with people who need to think I'm still a struggling artist. It helps keep things interesting. My phone buzzed again, this time with news that would reshape the entire art world. Ms. Chin, my AI assistant, announced, the final numbers from today's auction are in. With secondary market sales and commission offers, your total valuation has exceeded $1 billion. The room went silent except for the soft hum of my tablet's projectors. $1 billion. Mom whispered. That's just the current market value, I explained, pulling up the financial data. The futures market is predicting it will triple by next year. Dad stood up suddenly, walking to the wall where he'd once hung a poster of practical career choices, over my drawings. All those times we said you were wasting your talent, he said quietly. We were the ones who couldn't see. I brought up another piece, one I'd never shown in galleries. It was a digital recreation of my childhood bedroom, every sketch and doodle preserved exactly as it had been before they made me take them down. This one's not for sale, I said softly. Some art needs to stay personal. The room filled with animated memories, younger versions of myself drawing late into the night, dreams taking shape in what they dismissed as cartoons, hope surviving every criticism and doubt. The gallery opening next month, I continued, isn't just about showing art. It's about changing how we define value. Every kid who's been told their dreams are childish will have a place to learn, create, and prove the critics wrong. A new alert flashed across my tablet, the final piece of my plan falling into place. The old art school building, I said, pulling up live construction feeds, isn't just becoming a gallery. I'm turning it into the world's first digital arts academy. Full scholarships for students whose families think their art is just cartoons. Mom wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the plans unfold, a massive complex dedicated to nurturing the very creativity they tried to suppress in me. And the first exhibition? I smiled, watching their expressions. Will be called Childish Dreams, featuring my earliest sketches alongside their multi-million-dollar evolved forms. Every dismissive comment, every criticism, transformed into proof that art doesn't need to be traditional to be valuable. Dad touched one of the faint tape marks on the wall where my drawings had once hung. We were so wrong, he whispered. No, I corrected gently as another notification announced another 8-figure sale. You were just looking at art through an old frame. Sometimes the most valuable masterpieces start as simple sketches in a child's bedroom. Outside, I could hear reporters gathering, the art world's media finally tracking down the mysterious artist who just shattered every pricing record in modern history. But for now I let them wait. The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom cast dancing shadows across the annual Morrison family reunion. I adjusted my simple black dress, feeling distinctly out of place among the designer labels and diamond jewelry that adorned my more successful relatives. At 35, I was the family's designated disappointment, or so they thought. Anna, there you are. My cousin Victoria's voice carried across the room with practiced authority. She was impeccably dressed in a Chanel suit, her recent promotion to executive vice president at Morrison Technologies evident in her bearing. We were just discussing everyone's achievements this year. I fought the urge to check my phone, where an urgent email about tomorrow's billion-dollar merger sat unanswered. Instead, I plastered on a polite smile and braced myself for the annual ritual of subtle degradation. Hello, Victoria. Congratulations on your promotion. I kept my voice neutral, remembering the stack of confidential documents in my home office that bore Victoria's increasingly desperate signature requests from the past month. Thank you, darling. She air-kissed my cheek, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. I'm surprised you heard about it, given how disconnected you are from the corporate world. She gestured to our gathered relatives. We were just discussing how everyone's doing so well. James made partner at his law firm, Sarah's running her department at Goldman Sachs, and of course I'm handling Morrison Tech's biggest merger yet. Aunt Eleanor, Victoria's mother and my father's sister, joined us, champagne flute in hand. And what about you, Anna? Still doing that consulting thing? The way she said consulting made it sound like I was selling magazine subscriptions door to door. If only they knew that Phoenix Consulting Group, the firm they dismissed so easily, was actually... Yes, Aunt Eleanor. Still consulting. I sipped my water, thinking of the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, the meeting where Morrison Technology's fate would be decided, though Victoria didn't know that yet. 10 years, Victoria mused, shaking her head with exaggerated concern. 10 years since you left that promising position at Anderson & Co. to find your own path. And what do you have to show for it? A small consulting practice that nobody's ever heard of. I thought about the private island I purchased last month, the 3 homes in different countries, and the fact that I was Victoria's boss's boss's boss. Not that she knew it. Phoenix Consulting Group operated entirely through subsidiaries and shell companies, with my name carefully hidden from public records as the founder and CEO. I'd built it into one of the most powerful consulting firms in the world, specializing in corporate restructuring and major mergers. We do all right, I said mildly. How's the merger going, Victoria? I heard there were some complications. Her perfectly maintained smile flickered for just a moment. Nothing I can't handle, though I wouldn't expect you to understand the complexities of a billion-dollar merger. James, our cousin who just made partner at his law firm, joined our little circle. Are you still working out of that small office downtown, Anna? You know, I could help you find a real job. My firm's always looking for administrative support. I bit back a laugh, remembering the meeting last week where James's firm had desperately pitched their services to Phoenix Consulting Group, unaware that the mysterious CEO they were trying to impress was standing right in front of them. That's so kind of you, James, I said, watching him preen at my apparent gratitude, but I'm comfortable where I am. Oh, honey, Aunt Eleanor interjected, her voice dripping with false sympathy, you shouldn't settle for comfortable. Look at Victoria, she's about to close the biggest deal in Morrison Tech history. The merger with Global Tech will make her career. If they only knew that Global Tech was one of my shell companies, created specifically to force Morrison Tech into a position where they'd need Phoenix Consulting Group's help. Victoria's biggest deal was actually my carefully orchestrated plan to teach my family a much-needed lesson in humility. Speaking of the merger, Victoria said, checking her designer watch, I should go. Early meeting tomorrow with the consulting team. They're just advisors, of course, but we have to humor them. She gave me a patronizing smile. You should come by the office sometime, Anna. See what a real business looks like. I thought about the meeting she was referring to, the one where I would be sitting at the head of the table, not as Anna Morrison, the family disappointment, but as A.N. Phoenix, the reclusive founder of Phoenix Consulting Group. Actually, I said, finishing my water, I have an early meeting tomorrow too. A signing ceremony for a rather important contract. Oh. James smirked. Finally landed a big client for your little consultation business? Something like that. I smiled, thinking of the stunned expressions I'd see tomorrow. You could say tomorrow will change everything. As I left the reunion, I heard Victoria's carrying whisper. Poor Anna, still a nobody after all these years. What a waste of potential. In my car, I finally checked the email that had been buzzing in my pocket. It was from my COO. Everything's set for tomorrow. Morrison Tech's board is desperate to close this deal. They don't realize we're the ones holding all the cards. I drove home to my penthouse apartment, the one my family didn't know about, and spent the evening reviewing the final documents for tomorrow's meeting. The merger agreement was complex, deliberately so. Buried within its hundreds of pages were clauses that would give Phoenix Consulting Group significant control over Morrison Tech's operations. Victoria thought she was orchestrating a simple merger. In reality, she was about to hand control of her company to the cousin she'd spent years mocking. In my home office, I opened my safe and pulled out a thick folder labeled Project Morrison. Inside were years of documentation, every dismissive comment, every condescending remark, matched with corresponding business decisions that had slowly but surely led Morrison Tech into my web. Tomorrow they would finally learn that success doesn't always wear designer labels or broadcast itself from chandeliered ballrooms. Sometimes it works quietly in the shadows, building something far bigger than anyone could imagine. I picked up my phone and dialed my assistant. Sarah, make sure the conference room is ready for tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. And please have the photographer on standby. I want to capture every moment when the Morrison family realizes who really runs Phoenix Consulting Group. As I prepared for bed, I couldn't help but smile at the thought of tomorrow's revelation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a billion-dollar merger agreement and a signature line that reads, AN Phoenix, CO. The Phoenix Consulting Group's headquarters occupied the top 5 floors of downtown's most prestigious office tower. I stood in my private elevator, ascending to the penthouse conference room, watching the city wake up through the glass walls. Good morning, Miss Phoenix, my assistant Sarah greeted me as I stepped out. After 10 years, she was one of the few who knew both sides of my life. The Morrison Tech team is waiting in the main conference room. Your cousin Victoria is apparently quite vocal about the delay. I checked my reflection in the brushed steel walls. Gone was the intentionally understated Anna from last night's reunion. Today I was AN Phoenix, CEO of one of the world's most powerful consulting firms. How long have they been waiting? 20 minutes. Sarah's smile held a touch of mischief. Miss Morrison has mentioned her important position approximately 12 times. Well then, I straightened my jacket. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. The main conference room was a testament to power, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city. Victoria stood at one end of the massive table, mid-rant about the disrespect of being kept waiting. James sat nearby, presumably there as Morrison Tech's legal counsel. Several board members, including my uncle Robert, Victoria's father, and Morrison Tech's CEO, occupied the other seats. Finally, Victoria exclaimed as the door opened. Do you have any idea who I dash? Her voice trailed off as I walked in, her expression shifting from outrage to confusion to disbelief. Anna. James stood up so quickly he knocked over his water glass. What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet click that seemed to echo in the stunned silence. Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the delay. Shall we begin discussing the Morrison Tech Global Tech merger? Uncle Robert found his voice first. Anna, this is highly inappropriate. Where's AN Phoenix? We're here to meet with the CEO. You are. I sat down, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing folders. AN Phoenix. Anna Morrison Phoenix. Founder and CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group, and as of this morning, the majority shareholder of Global Tech Industries. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria had gone pale, her designer dress suddenly seeming like a child's costume. James was frantically flipping through the documents Sarah had distributed, his legal training kicking in as he searched for a loophole. This is impossible, Victoria stammered. You're just a small-time consultant. You work out of a tiny office downtown. That office? I smiled. It's one of our meeting spaces for local clients. Phoenix Consulting Group operates in 47 countries. We own this building, and as of today, we're about to own a controlling interest in Morrison Technologies. I stood up, clicking through presentation slides that detailed exactly how I'd built my empire while my family was busy underestimating me. 10 years ago, when I left Anderson & Co., everyone thought I was throwing my career away. What you didn't know was that I'd already secured contracts with 3 major international clients. While you were mocking my little consulting business, I was building a global network of subsidiaries and partnerships. Uncle Robert's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. Global Tech. It's your company? Through a series of shell corporations, yes. Just like the venture capital firm that's been buying up Morrison Tech debt for the past 3 years. I met his eyes across the table. The same debt you're hoping this merger will help you resolve. But Victoria sank into her chair. The merger terms, The consulting fees are non-negotiable. I pulled out the final contract. Phoenix Consulting Group will assume control of Morrison Tech operations, restructure the management team, and implement a new corporate strategy. You can't do this. James interjected, his legal partner bravado cracking. The board won't approve. The board already has. I nodded to Sarah, who displayed the voting results. They did so last night after reviewing the complete terms. Terms that make it clear Morrison Tech will face immediate loan recalls without this merger. Uncle Robert stood up slowly, his authority visibly crumbling. Why, Anna? Why go to all this trouble? I leaned back in my chair, letting the morning sunlight illuminate the conference room. Why? For 10 years I've watched this family confuse wealth with worth. You've measured success by the size of your office, the brand of your clothes, the exclusivity of your social circles. But true success, it's built in silence with strategy, patience, and vision. Victoria, still struggling to process the revelation, found her voice. But at the reunion last night you just sat there while you mocked my little consulting business? I finished for her. Yes, I did. Just like I've sat through 10 years of family dinners where you all took turns pitying poor Anna who couldn't hack it in the corporate world. Each condescending remark, each dismissive gesture, they all helped build this moment. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city I'd quietly conquered. You know what's ironic? While you were all so busy showing off your positions and promotions, none of you noticed that Phoenix Consulting Group was behind every major corporate restructuring in this city for the past 5 years. None of you questioned why Global Tech seemed so perfectly positioned to acquire Morrison Tech. None of you wondered why your little cousin Anna could afford to keep turning down your job offers. James, still frantically searching through documents, looked up. The Anderson merger last year. The Blackwood acquisition. That was all you? All me. I turned back to face them. Every major deal you've envied, every corporate takeover you've discussed at family dinners, I was the puppet master behind them all. And now it's Morrison Tech's turn. Sarah distributed another set of documents. These are the new management contracts. Victoria, you'll find your new position on page 3. Don't worry, you'll still have an office, just not quite as impressive as your current one. Victoria's hands trembled as she flipped to the page. Senior Project Manager? But I'm Executive Vice President. I corrected gently. The board agrees we need fresh leadership. Someone who understands that true success isn't about titles or corner offices. Uncle Robert, who had remained silent, finally spoke. The family trust, our shares, are now under Phoenix Consulting Group's control. I sat back down at the head of the table. Don't worry, you'll all retain your positions as shareholders. Minor shareholders, but shareholders nonetheless. The room fell into stunned silence as the full impact of what I'd accomplished sank in. Years of planning, of careful maneuvering had led to this moment. My family had built their success on appearances and connections. I'd built mine on strategy and silence. Now, I picked up my pen. Shall we sign the merger agreement? I have another meeting at 11. One by one they signed. Victoria's signature was shaky, James's almost illegible. Uncle Robert signed last, his hand heavy with the weight of realization. As they filed out of the conference room looking shell-shocked and defeated, I called out, "Oh, and Victoria?" She turned, her mascara slightly smudged. Next family reunion, try not to mock anyone's career choices. You never know who might be signing your paycheck. After they left, Sarah brought in a fresh cup of coffee. That went well, she observed with a slight smile. I took the coffee, savoring both its aroma and the morning's victory. 10 years of planning, all for this moment. Was it petty? Perhaps. But sometimes the best lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. My phone buzzed, texts from other family members who'd already heard the news. The family group chat was exploding with messages, ranging from shock to disbelief to sudden attempts at friendliness. I opened my laptop, ignoring the messages. There was work to be done. Real work. Not the kind that required designer suits and social climbing, but the kind that had built Phoenix Consulting Group into what it was today. Sarah paused at the door. Your sister called. She wants to know if you'll still be attending Sunday family dinner. I smiled, thinking of the stunned faces I'd seen today. Tell her I wouldn't miss it for the world. After all, family is family, even when they need a billion-dollar lesson in humility. As the sun climbed higher over the city, I began reviewing the next acquisition target. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And I had done just that, one quiet victory at a time.